And our first email question of the day comes to us from the Nerd Zone. And the Nerd Zone says, early the Batman screenings. Yeah. So he says the Batman has been screened for some people, and it is dark and like a horror movie. I'm so excited. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty excited myself, Nerd Zone. Now, there's a lot of information to cover here, specifically regarding the Batman. So I'm going to do my best to try and be as succinct as possible. And so right now, the Batman was... there was a new sizzle reel that Warner Brothers cooked up for CinemaCon. And, like CinemaCon, it's like Comic-Con, but, specifically for like the cinema theater owners, and, just kind of give everybody a sense of like, hey, this is our studio, this is what's coming out, and blah, 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 whatever, right? We talked a little bit about it last week. So at CinemaCon, Warner Brothers created a whole bunch of different segments, and one of those segments was about the Batman. They slapped together a brand new sizzle reel. People who were in attendance at CinemaCon kind of got a little extra something, and then they went ahead and screened the first trailer that came out. But I kind of want to jump into Comic Book Resource real quick. Here they have a pretty succinct breakdown as to what that sizzle reel was. And they say Bruce Wayne walks to ominous piano. There's a lot of typos in here, so excuse me if it takes me a second to wrap my brain around what they're saying. Bruce Wayne walks to ominous piano music. And then there's a voiceover from Robert Pattinson. For some reason, Batman has always stood as one of those major characters of the 20th century, Pattinson says. We see him in the cowl, removing it. He says it is radically different from the other Batman movies. Matt Reeves, the director of the film, says we haven't seen anything grounded in the way Year One does. Year One, if you're not familiar, Batman Year One is a comic book story. It's become very popular, and it's not an origin story, but it kind of takes you through the journeys of what it was like to be Batman, for Bruce Wayne to be Batman. Bratman? Now there's a different comic. What it was like for Bruce Wayne to be Batman in his first year being Batman. He wasn't polished yet. He was still kind of rough around the edges. So, yeah. Anyway, so Matt Reeves says, we haven't seen anything grounded in the way that Year One does. It's not an origin story, but it is Batman in his early days. The footage shows Batman beating up goons set in red light. Explosions, police officers, and dark chaos. Quote, from Robert Pattinson, he's really working out this rage. All the fights seem very personal. He uses various weapons to beat down enemies. A shot shows Andy Serkis as Alfred. The Batmobile drives with flames coming from its exhaust. We can't wait for you to see the Batman in theaters next year, Matt Reeves says. So there's kind of like a very short explanation as to what that sizzle reel was, as to what that sizzle reel looked like. But then, and people were kind of like, it looks kind of dark, looks obviously dark and gritty. Don't forget, it looks dark and gritty, right? But then, we had this kind of pop out. Yes, we knew that the Batman had been screened for various test audiences. And one of the goers of that test audience broke their NDA, and they told a friend of theirs. And that friend, it appears, happens to be Blu-ray Angel. Now, before... Well, I've already pulled up the graphics, so let's just go ahead and read it real quick. So Blu-ray Angel says, exclusive. For the record, Blu-ray Angel on Twitter and online is very much like Gotta Love Them Movies. Someone who is trying to kickstart and jumpstart a career on YouTube, in social media, talking about the things that they love. Movies, movie news, stuff like that. So I would take this specifically with a grain of salt, but Blu-ray Angel says, exclusive. I know someone who has seen The Batman, a friend of mine and a really good person. Here's what they told me, thread, no spoilers. The Batman movie is a horror movie. Very graphic, very dark, very scary. Paul Dano is crazy, so scary. I loved every second. Of course, there was a little colorful language of which I blurred out a little bit. But yeah, so let's just go ahead and assume that all of this is true. A Blu-ray Angel has a friend, and this friend has seen the in its entirety. Also, to note, Blu-ray Angel says that they saw, the cut that they saw of the Batman is 3 hours long. Okay, so I have a few ideas. I have a few thoughts on this. First of all, as someone who has gone to, quite a few of these, not premieres, but like pre-screenings, a 3-hour cut of the movie is not unheard of. It's not the finished cut. This, if it's a 3-hour cut, there's a very good possibility, a very good chance it's going to get cut down to maybe 2.5 hours, maybe 2:15, right? It's most definitely going to be over the 2-hour mark. But they're going to have to cut a lot of stuff out of this because this is a test screening. It was just a test screening, right? Which is why you have to sign an NDA. If you've never been to a test screening, here's kind of the progression of how it works. You get an invitation through email from the studio saying, hey, we see that you've been to other test screenings. And the way that you get an invitation to a test screening is you just kind of have to know which movie theaters do like big premieres or big screenings or whatever, and stand around outside waiting for tickets, essentially. And if they have any left over, then, they'll give you one, you give them their email address, and they let you in, right? So that's how you first get into a test screening. You just kind of have to know what theaters do test screenings and then just hang around in person. Maybe you'll get in, maybe you won't, but you just kind of have to wait around and do it. But once you do it once or twice, then you kind of start getting your email into the system, and then you get this email, right? So you get the email, they invite you, they say, hey, we're doing a test screening of, so I can talk about this now because the movie's in theaters. Old. M. Night Shyamalan's Old. That was the most recent test screening that I went to. So I get an email through the studio saying, hey, M. Night Shyamalan's Old is coming out as a test screening. Would you like to see it? Would you like tickets? Of course I would like to go see it. Of course I would love to go get tickets. So you reserve your tickets online. They say, great, you've been you're confirmed, but you don't, your confirmation doesn't necessitate you getting tickets. You still have to get to the theater early enough. And if there's room, they'll let you in, right? So again, you kind of have to get there a little early, stand in line, that whole deal. While you're standing in line, you get to the theater, you're standing in line. People, workers, not for the theater, but for the studio are there trying to, it's a big organized mess. And they're passing out NDAs. Now, an NDA, if you're not familiar, is a non-disclosure agreement. Basically, every NDA is a little different, but essentially what it means is we are going to let you see the movie. It's not finished. We still need to hear feedback. We still need to do some tweaks, tighten it a little bit, cut stuff out, add stuff in. We need to mix the audio. We need, like, the graphics are still unfinished, stuff like that. So if it's like a Spider-Man movie, sometimes the rendering of, the CG might not be where it would be if it was, coming out in theaters, like for the masses. So you go in with this understanding that it's not the finished product. The other part of the NDA is that you can't tell anybody. You have signed a legal document that you can't tell anyone that you've seen the movie. Well, I guess you can't tell people that you've seen the movie, but you can't tell anybody anything about it. You can't say whether you liked it. You can't say whether you disliked it. You can't say anything that happened. You can't talk about anything that isn't already in the trailer. You can't talk about it. You just can't talk about it. You can't give any kind of review, any kind of reaction, nothing. All you can say is, and even, I mean, technically you can say, yeah, I saw it, but even then, you can't, sometimes you can't even say that. And with the movie, like with old, who cares? Yeah, okay, yeah, I saw the movie. Nobody cares. The stakes are low. But with a movie like Batman, I am absolutely certain that it was written into that NDA agreement. You can't even tell your friends that you saw the movie. You can't. You just can't. Because it's the stakes are too high. Too many people are going to try and break you. They want to know. And the more people talk to you, the more you're going to let this slip and that slip. And then before you know it, you've grossly broken your NDA. So if we go back over here, so Blu-ray Angel is claiming, and again, Blu-ray Angel is a small-time, very, very, very small-time movie blog kind of network, just like Gotta Love Them Movies. Just like Gotta Love Them Movies. I don't break stories because, I have a few people I know some people in the industry, but not anyone like that high up, right? So whoever Blu-ray Angel's friend is, I guarantee you, Warner Brothers is going through all the NDAs, because if this is true, if this is to be believed, what Warner Brothers is doing right now is they're going through all their NDAs. They're looking at all the friends that Blu-ray Angel has online, everything that's public knowledge, and they're cross-referencing it with people who have signed NDAs. They're looking for people who live in very specific geographic areas. They're looking for people who have friends in common and, so on and so forth, blah, 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 stuff like that. Warner Brothers wants to know who said this. And legal action, I guarantee you, legal action will be pursued privately. It's not going to be public knowledge unless, Blu-ray Angel starts, saying more stuff of like, oh, my friend who saw the movie is now getting sued by Warner Brothers, stuff like that. So even then, like, it unravels a whole cacophony of legal ramifications, which is Blu-ray Angel's fine. Blu-ray Angel didn't do anything. Blu-ray Angel is just reporting on something that their friend said. Again, if this is to be believed, I have no reason to think that it is not true. It's probably true. It honestly, very well, probably true. So all of that, let's just take that kind of with a grain of salt. But if this is to be believed, the Batman movie is a horror movie. Very graphic, very dark, very scary. Paul Dano is crazy, so scary. I loved every second. Let's just take it for its surface. Remember, you guys, this is not the finished product. It's not the finished product. But it sounds awesome! This sounds awesome! Do you remember when Doctor Strange came out, 2016, I believe? And it was being directed by Scott Derrickson, who is a very well-known horror filmmaker. And we were like, wow, we're going to get our first horror movie in the MCU. And even Kevin Feige was like, oh, yeah, it's definitely going to have a strong horror vibe to it. And we're like, this sounds so cool. I don't like scary movies, like the horror genre by and large. I'm not put off by it, but it terrifies me. I love the idea of scary movies. I love, reading the synopses. I just can't watch them because they scare me too much. But, the idea that a Batman movie can traverse genres and also become a horror film, and it's very dark and it's very scary. Like, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want. This sounds so cool. So, Nerd Zone, when you say the Batman has been screened for some people, and it is dark, it's like a horror movie, I'm excited. Excuse me. Yeah, me too. This sounds, again, if this is all to be believed, take it all with a grain of salt. This very well might not be true. And again, as Blu-ray Angel has been reporting, his friend who kind of broke their NDA and started talking about this stuff. 3 hours long? It's not going to be 3 hours long. It might be 2.5. It might be 2.5. I'll go so far as to say, yeah, it's probably going to be a 2.5 hour movie. 2.5. Yeah, 2.5 hour long film. It's not going to be 3 hours. It just most definitely is not. But yeah, does this get me excited? This gets me very excited. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Is it to be believed? Probably, but again, temper expectations. Like, none of this has been vetted. None of this has been verified. But it definitely sounds like, I guarantee you, Warner Brothers is most definitely going to be looking into this thing. But you guys, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts about all of this stuff? Even like the sizzle reel that came out at CinemaCon. Like, people are talking about, hey, I got to see Andy Serkis as Alfred. Hey, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman looks awesome. It's hard to put all that stuff into context, because while they may look great, they may look awesome, again, we haven't seen the finished product. I mean, Blu-ray Angel's friend supposedly has seen the finished product, but I mean, if all this is to be believed, dark, scary is like ooh, like when I hear that, I hear like psychologically scary. I don't hear like It Chapter 1, It Chapter 2. I don't hear The Shining. Well, I don't know, maybe a little touch of The Shining. Who knows? Maybe a little touch of The Shining. But, your traditional horror film, scary movie, I don't see it in that kind of a vein. I see it more in the vein of like, this character is scary. I would not want to meet this guy in a dark alley, kind of scary, right? Like Fallen, like how Fallen was scary, right? It's not a scary movie, but it has this kind of like brood to it. Oh, man. Yeah. So I was very much looking forward to seeing it. If this is to be trusted, if this source from Blu-ray Angel is to be trusted, yeah, this is, it's getting at me. It's getting at me in a good way. So, but like I said, I want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? Where does this sit with you? Let me know down in the comments section below. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is exactly what Batman from the animated series would want you to do. His name is Batman.